Hi, I'm Dawn White at the Pine Needle in Lake Oswego, and I'm going to show you how I use the mini binding tool to finish off my quilt binding after I've sewn it all the way around the quilt. This is the mini binding tool for smaller quilts. It's 2 inches wide. There's also a wider one, a larger binding tool that I think is 2.5 inches. And whether you're binding, you cut your binding 2 inches to 2.5 inches, you can actually use both sizes. Now I want you to notice that the first thing I did with my little binding tool is I drew a line exactly 1/2 inch from the edge, away from the edge, with an ultra-fine point Sharpie marker, and I'll show you why I did that in just a moment. So here you have a good look at the mini binding tool, and you'll see that right here, exactly 1/2 inch away from the edge, I have drawn a line, a thin line with an ultra-fine point Sharpie, and I'll show you why I did that in just a moment. So here I have the two pieces ending and starting and ending pieces on my binding. We'll put the left one down and the right on top. I'm going to open up this one, and I'm going to use the binding tool to cut this edge here, like here. Now, I'm right-handed, and this is actually the perfect position for somebody who's left-handed. So to make this cut, I would actually go around to the other side of the mat. But it's important because then you're in the proper position for the other side. So I've made that cut, and you see that it goes from the upper right to the lower left-hand corner with the notch here. This is the beauty of this tool. This notch is just perfectly sized to give you a perfect seam when you're ready to sew it together. So that's cut, and I'm going to lay that on top of the one on the left, and with a non-permanent marker, I'm going to make a mark right where that raw edge is. Because I'm using dark fabric, I used a white ceramic lead pencil here. So that's my first line that I'm going to draw. I'm actually going to draw a second line. I'm going to open up this piece, lay it on the cutting mat, and then I'm going to lay the tool so that this line that I drew, 1/2 inch from the edge, I'm going to lay right on top of that first line that I drew, and then I'm going to use my mark. Actually, I used a marking pen here to show you, but what I would be ready to do at this point is take my rotary cutter and cut that right there. So then what I have are two edges that are ready to be sewn together. And the right sides will go together, and I think you can see from the lines that are on this that they're going to line up just perfectly, allowing you to take a very generous, a full 1/4 inch seam right there, and it's going to fit perfectly so that when you're ready to sew them together, let me just show you first of all. You're going to press that seam open and then fold it back, and then the two edges here, this was the starting edge and the finishing edge, are perfectly positioned to sew up the rest of this. And so you simply put in a couple of pins. I start sewing a few inches from on this side and end over here. Don't knot, just stitch all the way here. And what you wind up with is the perfect binding, ready to go around. So I happen to cut my bindings normally 2 1/8 inch. This was 2 inches, but for 2 1/8, I would actually have a little bit of fabric sticking up here, and I just run right off the edge with my rotary cutter, and it works perfectly. Very handy little tool.